Offering my humble and most loving pranams at the lotus feet of our beloved dearest Swami. Good evening to all of you, and thank you so much for attending this virtual session. I'm not used to speaking to a Sai gathering of this size, so I know Swami is protecting me right now. But also, please forgive my presentation format. I'm used to presentations, but not speeches. I find that slides help me focus. And so sorry if this is not something you're used to. Thank you to Greg and Jiva for trusting me to speak today. In preparation for this speech on the topic, How God Protects His Devotees, I read so many books with Swami stories, I read discourses, and I reflected on stories from our scriptures that shaped my understanding of God and His ways. So I'm very grateful for that chance to do it. Thank you. There are countless stories that show us how God protects His devotees. For example, if you read the Shirdi Sai Satcharita, the first chapter in that story talks about how Shirdi Baba grinds wheat and then sprinkles the wheat flour around the town of Shirdi to protect his devotees from the cholera epidemic. There are many stories from the life of Prahlada, this young boy who was immersed in taking the name of Lord Vishnu. And every time Prahlada's father Hiranyakashipu tried to harm him, Vishnu was right there to protect him. Prahlada's faith in Vishnu and his continuous nam smarana of the Lord's name earned him God's protection. Or that time when Jesus comes to the aid of the fishermen and calms the stormy seas. When I left India many years ago, a friend of mine gave me a little Hanuman statue that I carry with me at all times. She said that it was good for my protection. She said that in times high or low, when I was confused or lonely, he would be my protector. Hanuman is an example of how faith conquers all, how faith earns us the protection of our divine master. He shows us how when you do God's work, God is bound to you. He has to protect you. Hanuman is an example of how when God says jump, you have but to ask how high. Going through Swami's discourses, I found the story of the elephant king Gajendra, but Dr. Sridevi just narrated the story to you. And then I also found the story of Abraham Lincoln that Victoria shared with you. So the story I am going to share with you is from a discourse of Swami's, but it's the story of Draupadi. Draupadi was the wife of the Pandava brothers and known to be a woman of great strength, character, and devotion, is an inspiration to many young women even today. The story goes that during the game of dice, the Kauravas challenged Pandavas, and Yudhishthira lost just about everything in the process, and he had nothing more to gamble, but the Kauravas instigated Yudhishthira to place a bet on Draupadi. Yudhishthira loses once again, and the oldest Kaurava brother then drags her to court with the aim to disrobe her. Hearing Draupadi, completely and totally helpless, calls on Krishna as her sole refuge. Hearing her prayers, Krishna comes to her aid in a trice. He utters the word Akshayam, and her sari becomes endless. Swami in his discourse reveals why or how Krishna comes to her rescue. Swami says to merit divine help, one must have offered something or the other to God. A leaf, a flower, a fruit, something. It was Shankaranti Day, and while handling sugarcane, Krishna suffered a cut on his little finger. Immediately, Rukmini sent a maid to fetch a bandage, and Satyabhama ran to fetch a cloth herself. But Draupadi, who was present right there, immediately, without any hesitation, tore a piece of her sari and wrapped it around Krishna's finger. Remembering this story, and even though she had only given a small piece of her sari, her spontaneous act of love and devotion to Krishna melted his heart. In her time of need, Krishna remembered the story and decided to make that little piece of sari an endless sari. That is how he protects his devotees. Today, on Aaradhana Day, a day on which our lives as Sai devotees changed in 2011, gives us an opportunity to reflect and do some self inquiry. There are moments in history for all of us when we remember what we were doing, where we were, how we were feeling during that event. For example, if you ask anybody about 9/11, everyone remembers where they were and what was happening and how they were feeling. Just like Dr. Sridevi said, for us Sai devotees, that event of Swami leaving his body left us in sadness and in complete shock. Personally, for me, in my life, there has never been an event that shook me as much as this one did. I grew up knowing his physical presence, and that anytime I needed him, I would just run to Puttaparthi or Brindavan and not have to worry. That I had a safe haven, and that when I saw his face, nothing else would really matter. It seemed at that time that it would be completely impossible to feel anything but pain for the rest of my life. I felt my faith was shaken and I was completely frozen. There was just no feeling. But, like in the story of Footprints, which I will read to you in a second, I feel like he has carried us on his shoulders during these 9 years. Footprints is a story. If you Google it, you should also find it. But the story goes this way: it's the story of a man who says, "One night I dreamed I was walking along the beach with the Lord. Many scenes from my life flashed across the sky. In each scene, I noticed footprints in the sand. Sometimes there were two sets of footprints. Other times there were one set of footprints. This bothered me because I noticed that during the low periods in my life, when I was suffering from anguish, sorrow, or defeat, I could only see one set of footprints. So I said to the Lord, 'You promised me, Lord, that if I followed you, you would walk with me always. But I have noticed that during the most trying periods of my life, there have been only one set of footprints in the sand. Why? When I needed you the most, have you not been there for me?' The Lord replied, 'The times when you have seen only one set of footprints in the sand is when I carried you.' I believe he has carried me these last few years on his shoulders and made me completely reliant on his omnipresence. Whatever progress I'm making on this path is because of him. I believe that devotion and service are what he's teaching us to be our sole refuge, because there is eternal joy in service. Swami says, this was in a Sanatana Sarthi, July 1966, in an article written by Charles Penn. Swami says, "If you lift the hand to serve, to help, to console, to encourage another man, you are lifting it for God, because in every man is God. Be of service to others, for that is giving yourself to me. For whatever you give, I will repay you thrice. Nay, I shall repay you tenfold. Try me and you will see. I say to those who know the joy of giving, look back. Yes, look back and see how each time you felt that nothing but a miracle could save you, keep you alive, fill your larder, save your son, stop a disaster. Has not that miracle happened? Divine guidance is always at the side of the giver. Yes, I will give to those who give of themselves untold joy and bliss. And what is more, I will lead them by the hand along those petal-strewn paths of eternal joy. Every deed performed, do it in my name. Every person who passes your path, give them the sweetness of your smile. Give freely of the nectar of your cup of happiness, of kindness, of blissfulness. Give the warmth of your love. Extend your hand as I extend mine to you. Thank you to everyone for listening, to Greg, Jiva, Bala, my center members, and our Sai family for the honor and privilege of being able to share. And thank you, Swami, for being our constant guide and companion. Jai Sai Ram.